The Hunted, Part 1, by TeeStache. Entry 1. This world is full of beings we consider unnatural. They defy the laws of reality we have set for ourselves. Yet, there are beings that go even further than that. Beyond the physical that we can barely begin to defy with our imaginations. The following words are the retellings of my encounters with one type of these said beings. A few months ago, I posted the entries of a journal that belonged to a close friend of mine. It was rather short, but I guess destiny decided he didn't have that long anyway. He disappeared shortly after, and has been spotted in numerous places around the world. I and two others have been trying to track him down, and capture him, as well as do the same with the rest of those like him. Lately, their numbers have been decreasing. Someone's picking them off. I think it might be one of them that I fought before. I'd say fought, but I got my ass handed to me both times. Not really much of a fight. So far, I've captured a few of these things. For now, I'll just refer to them as subjects. Those bastards were tough, yet their bodies were humanly frail. Catching them by surprise was the best way to ensure the capture. I didn't want to risk my life to find out what they're capable of. Just from looking at them, you can't really tell the difference from them and any random guy you may bump into. Their mannerisms, habits, and their eyes are the usual dead giveaways. There have been a few, however, that we cooperate with. One of them has an interesting job working as a foreclosure agent. I usually ask him about any rumors of other subjects he's heard about. Today, he told me of a specific rumor that's been spread of the Ancient One's whereabouts. It had been a couple hours before we met up. I was talking to him. I was walking up to him as he was finishing foreclosing a purchase of a massive house. Subject 707, the Soul Collector. His destructive capabilities had him on a watch list. Apparently there's a supernatural FBI. Think Men in Black, but more hands-on. I've only met a couple of their officers here and there. My friend's company, after testing and confirming, bought haunted properties and destroyed them. Afterwards, he'd collect the haunting souls that remained. As long as he didn't harm any human, he could do as he wished. He was speaking into a hand radio when I arrived. Right then. All the foundation boards are taken out, correct? I don't want a repeat of what happened last month. Right then. Okay, everybody, stand clear. He extended his right hand towards the building. It was vacant from the previous tenants and workers. While flexing his forearm, he swung his hand toward the ground. In that instance, the entire building flattened, pulverized into dusty remains, settling what was the basement. Wispy smoke like spirits began to form around the rubble, zigzagging around in all directions. His left arm then reached towards the apparitions, drawing them towards him. In moments, his left hand held orbs of smoky energy. They were then put inside of a container held in his right palm that materialized instantly. He put the bottle inside the pocket of his oversized coat. As terrifying as always, George. I sure don't want to mess with you. My voice brought his attention toward me. A wide grin spread across his wrinkled face. Scotch, old pal. It's been far too long. George reaches his arm towards mine. I grasp it, being pulled into a bear hug. I'm only in my late 20s. You're the one who's old as hell. Your wrinkles are showing again. He brought it at his face, with a look of disgust. His hand was held behind his head, as if he was pulling something out of his hair. His once pronounced age-defining features began to reverse. I swear, he could fake a product that reverses age. I know you aren't here for idle chit-chat, so let's get right down to it. He leaned towards me to ensure his voice wasn't overheard by any curious employee. The Ancient One was here last night. He and his servant were looking for some buried catacombs. I don't know what they're looking for. Thank you, George. I'll take a look around the area. There's a chance they're still in that labyrinth. Before I could walk away, George grasped my arm, stopping me. If you do find him, remember this. No matter what you see, that isn't your friend. He's long gone. With a sigh, I stared at the ground. You don't have to remind me. I walked off towards my truck. I'm more than certain George was staring at me. He'll know where to find me. Entry 2. It has been a few hours since I talked to George. I've been keeping tabs on all the gossip of this town over the past few days. People have been disappearing recently. More specifically, the subjects of their affiliates. The path I've been following has less subjects than what I previously recorded. A quiet knock came from the other side of my motel room door. Before I could check to answer it, the door unlocked itself and opened slowly. George was standing outside, with his palm facing me. I hope you're ready to go. I grinned at my friendly intruder. Of course, I said as I slid my M203 grenade launcher into my oversized coat. I followed George out of the crappy motel, leaving my collection of weapons hidden within. We came to an old church around midnight. I speculate it was built over 200 years ago. Inside, candles flickered, signifying someone was inside. I walked in front of George, towards the front doors remaining wide open. I peeked my head around the corner, noticing nothing suspicious. We stealthily crept inside the decrepit structure. The first thing I noticed that seemed out of place was the lack of noise. Not even the flames from the candles produced a flickering sound. Only our footsteps filled the silence. I held my hand close to one of the flames. It still produced heat. Behind the podium, my eyes caught an opening in the floor. A stairway made of an old and dilapidated stone led downwards. George grabbed my shoulder. I turned to him, and he simply nodded. In response, I let him traverse the ancient path in front of me. As we traveled down beneath the church, the walls began to show intricate designs carved into them. I didn't recognize them. It was as if it were a foreign language, some sort of hieroglyphics. After walking for almost an hour, we entered a large chamber. On the other side of the room, chatter could be heard. Looking in that direction, we saw two figures, standing and studying the wall. George and I walked cautiously towards them, keeping our footsteps as quiet as possible. So long as I remained behind him, George's massive figure made it easy for me to hide my presence. We were 25 feet away, when I could clearly see the details of the two figures conversing. One of them was sharply dressed, as if he had just come from an English ball. The other man wore a plain black t-shirt with a pair of grey jeans. Before we could get any closer, they halted their conversation. I ducked my head behind George as they turned towards us. I really hope they didn't see me. George began to speak before they could utter a word. What is your purpose here? These are holy grounds, not the land of cultists meddle with. I heard a familiar voice, which pained me to listen to. Holy grounds? Surely, you jest. What kind of church houses monstrosities like this? Before George could reply, I quickly stepped out from behind him, aiming my M203 towards the two men. I pulled the trigger and watched as the round was propelled towards them. Unflinching, the casually dressed man put up his hand. A translucent golden wall formed in front of him, deflecting the explosion. Following my attack, George pointed his hand towards the duo. He clenched his fists, and I witnessed a multitude of translucent hands connected to tendrils coming out of his back. Poised to strike, they each struck at the golden barrier. After several fruitless strikes, they recoiled and floated above George. The ghost-like limbs began forming into one massive hand. Clasping into a giant fist, it was launched towards the duo once again. Upon impact, the barrier was shattered into hundreds of tiny pieces. They floated oddly for a few seconds before hitting the ground. With a movement of his finger, the defending target shot all of the shards into his ghostly hand. And now expand! In an instant, each shard began to multiply its size many times over. The force was too great. It tore the hands to shreds. Souls began to detach themselves from the form once commanded by George. They wandered out of the tomb, leaving us. George felt the pain of each tear as the soul left his grasp. So much that he collapsed to his knees. Before another attack could come from either of us, a soft green glow came from the wall behind our two foes. Becoming brighter as the seconds passed, the wall's form lost its solid texture. It now looked like a constant waterfall of oil. Half a minute passed before a form began to protrude from the liquid. It was a massive humanoid figure. Its flesh darker than the substance dripping off of it. After they completely exited, the wall became solid once again. The figure dropped to its knees, followed by their torso collapsing to the ground. A deep and exhausted pattern of breathing came from the creature. Upon recognizing the creature, my eyes became wide with confusion. I looked towards the two who summoned it. Their expressions held satisfied smiles. That should keep them busy. At least long enough to keep them off our trail. Let's go, Drake. With a nod, the well-dressed man began to walk behind his accomplice. You're just going to leave like that? Aren't you going to kill us? Like the trail of subjects you've left behind. Ancient One. The duo halted and looked back at me. My dear Scotch, what reason would I have to kill my own brothers and sisters? You aren't the only ones hunting us. With that, he and Drake left me to tend to George in his weakened state. Entry 3. I helped George back to the motel I was staying at. He wasn't in very good shape. He had just enough strength left to barely walk. Once inside, he collapsed onto my bed and passed out instantly. I went to write down what happened after Drake and that ancient asshole left. Back at the church, George and I finally made it to the church's entrance. It took a half an hour of me dragging most of his weight. Before we could walk out, the feeling of someone breathing on the back of my neck stopped me. I craned my head backwards to see the monstrosity I had come to know as the Beast. He didn't attack, he just stared at us. His crimson eyes seemed to be full of thought. He crouched down, looking into my eyes, and spoke calmly.
I recognize you. The scent you give off brings back distant memories. How did I get here?
With a scowl, more from being pissed at this thing than actual bravery, I spoke to him. That ancient guy brought you back. I'm not sure why. He took his forefinger and brought it up to his lip in pondering thoughts.
Anything else before that? Did he say anything as to why he would do such a thing?
I thought back to what he said to me before leaving. He said I wasn't the only one hunting them. His eyes widened a bit, as if he was showing fear.
I see. If that is truly the case, it would be best I don't waste any more of my time here.
He walked past George and I, ignoring us completely. He was 3 yards in front of me when he stopped.
I am sorry for the loss of your ally that I have caused.
His statement confused me. I began to question him. What are you? He cut me off, continuing to speak.
My mind goes into a hazy rage every time I experience pain. By instinct, I desire a challenging combatant. When I am finished, however, I reflect on my actions. It is no excuse I deserve. Your ally deserved a better death.
With that, he sprinted off in a flash. I don't know what's going on. Now there's something that even scares Mr. Doc Goliath. I can't handle this. I'm gonna let George rest while I grab a drink at the bar. Entry 4. At around 3 a.m., I sat down in an empty booth and ordered a scotch on ice. I can't help myself, being my favorite drink. My mind began to numb away halfway through the beverage. From behind me, I heard a jolly laughter, followed by heavy bootsteps. After a few seconds, the source of the noise came into sight. The scarred face of a slightly elderly man looked at me. His expression became distraught. I looked at him in confusion. "Can I help you?" Instead of answering me, he just asked,
Where did she go?
"Where did who go?"
The woman that was sitting right where you're sitting right now.
"Look, man, he slammed himself onto the bench."
Ah, damn. Don't tell me she just up and left. I'm not that scary, am I? That's the last time I'm using Tinder. I guess I'll just have a drink with you then. You seem like a guy who likes to talk to scary strangers.
I stared at him in disbelief. "What? Wait, hold up. Who the hell are you?"
Before I answer that question, why are you carrying a gun that big? People here hunt deer, nothing bigger. Unless that's what you do.
I began to become suspicious of this guy. This wasn't a simple deduction. He guessed dead on. "Who are you?"
You know, you begin to recognize the thing hunters have in common. It's not something that regular game hunters have. The look in their eyes. The look they have when they've killed someone. Or something.
"So you're a hunter too, I take it? I don't think I could guess how many you've killed."
I don't think I could remember.
"Why are you here?"
My prey left before I could even get here. I decided I'd try to have a fun night before continuing tomorrow.
"Your prey was here too?"
You should know. We're hunting the same things.
I was confused for a couple seconds. That was until he extended his forearm and introduced himself.
Pleasure to meet you. I'm the Punisher.
We were there for 2 hours discussing many things. My questions were about the subjects we had collected data on over the last few centuries. Apparently, we only held data on a third of the subjects overall. His questions included basic things like how to approach women and have a good time. By the end of our conversation, he had left me with a strange transponder.
Simply press your thumb down on that emblem. I'll know where you are. Until next time we meet, Hunter.
I got back to my room after the sun rose. George was gone, but he did leave me a note. He regained enough strength and left home. I suspect he has quite the collection of souls still in his possession. For now, I'm gonna let the Punisher do his thing and take care of the Ancient One. He seems to be more equipped for ancient POS. I still haven't forgiven the beast. I don't care how much he apologizes. It won't bring my friend back. It does bring me joy knowing someone scares him, though. I'm gonna pack up my weapons and head out. There's someone else I've gotta find. Hey guys, 4-Shot Boss is here. I just want to let you guys know. You guys better stay safe out there. I don't want any of you guys, doing anything too dangerous with all this rioting and stuff going on. So, please just stay safe out there, guys. And, most importantly, stay creepin'.